Good evening. Can you believe that we are here, actually here, on our beautiful Paradise High School campus to celebrate and welcome the Paradise High School graduating class of 2019 back to their home field?
The fact that we are here tonight to celebrate this milestone is a miracle, because you survived one of the most destructive wildfires in our nation's history. It left us a different people.
And that is a clip from Rebuilding Paradise. It's the new movie, it's the new documentary from the one and only Ron Howard, who joins us from, actually, I should have checked where he's joining us from. Good afternoon to you, Ron. Where are you, sir?
I'm in Connecticut, where Cheryl and I live, about an hour north of New York. And you know, this is my 6th month. It's the longest period of time I've been home, maybe in my adult life.
Are you finding it frustrating, or are you, is it, can you sort out and start some productions going, in planning for when we are allowed out?
I can. There's been, I'm a partner at Imagine Entertainment with Brian Grazer, and we've been able to be incredibly active as a company, and we're always working with writers and developing projects, whether it's in the documentary space or scripted. And some of our TV shows have gone back into production, and I am preparing. I also finished editing Hillbilly Elegy, which comes out on Netflix later this year. So I've been busy, but I will also admit, my wife and I, we're introverts. There's a part of this that we're probably liking to an unhealthy extent, and I think it's about time for the world to safely open up and get us out of the house a bit more.
It does sound as though your industry, certainly from your perspective on your industry, is working to live with this situation and work around and with the restrictions that it's put on you.
Well, yes, everyone is, and strangely, on a distribution side, it's kind of a boom for streamers and so forth. So there's a real need for content, but there's an even greater need for new stories and an itch from all of us on the storytelling side to get to work. So while we're not, yes, it is frustrating. We're not able to launch and complete projects and get paid and all the things that you like to do if you're a company or this is your career. But there's lots and lots we can do to keep paving the way. And again, we are beginning to get some productions underway, which is gratifying, but also tense, because we must do it safely. And that's all any of us want. We haven't had any mishaps yet. And we're praying we can do it safely, as is the entire industry.
So this story of Rebuilding Paradise goes back to November the 8th, 2018. Just tell us, and the terrifying fires. I mean, we're watching fires again on the news in most recent weeks. But tell us how you came to make this movie, Ron.
Well, documentaries, that's an aspect of our world that I've been delving into in recent years. I did the Beatles 8 days a week, and a documentary about Pavarotti, and early effort about Jay-Z and a music festival that he was curating. And I've just found that I've really loved it, but I haven't actually tackled a subject. I haven't worked in what they call cinema verite, which is where you take cameras into a situation and you don't necessarily know what the story is going to be. You just begin asking questions and building a story. And because my mother-in-law lived the last 4 or 5 years of her life in Paradise, California, when I saw this on the news, of course, it became more personal to me. And sadly, so many of us humans, when it becomes personal, it becomes more meaningful. And while I certainly felt the tragedy of fires and storms and all kinds of human crises in the past, this one really got my attention and began wondering as we understood that the town was really devastated. 95% of the town was burned. No idea at that point how many fatalities, but it immediately, the title came to mind more as a question mark. What is going to happen to these people? Is Rebuilding Paradise even, is it even on the horizon? Is there any viability to that dream at all? Is anyone even daring to have that dream. And I went to our team at Imagine, Justin Wilkes and Sarah Bernstein, and I said, could this be the verite story for me to try to tackle? Because I have an emotional investment in this, and we're seeing these, the pattern of storms all around the world, fires, earthquakes, all kinds of devastation. I wonder what it will be like when it's not a news story anymore. And they said, well, there's only one way to know in this situation. And we sent a camera crew ahead of me with the producer. Then I joined and began asking questions, and people wanted to tell their story. Still, we had no real idea where it would lead us, or whether Rebuilding Paradise would even be viable as a title. But we collected some footage, and people began showing us their cell phone footage that was so personal, and began to sense that there's a way to really connect this in a very visceral, cinematic way for audiences. So it's a powerful experience to watch this film. Shared all of that footage with National Geographic, and Brian Grazer and I have had a great partnership with Nat Geo over the last 4 or 5 years, doing both documentaries, and our series is Genius. We did Einstein and Picasso, and now we're doing Aretha Franklin, and that's a scripted series. So we have a really great working relationship with them. They immediately said, yes, we'll support this. Go, embed, have teams there, follow this story, and we'll support you in this. And they were great partners. But the real partners, of course, are the people in the town who trusted us to really let us follow them, let us into their lives in some very intimate, sometimes triumphant, but also sometimes very, very painful personal moments. And I learned so much being a part of it.
The opening 10, 15 minutes of your film, Ron, are terrifying and thrilling, really, and very, very moving. You mentioned the phone footage and the dash cam footage. So we sort of join the story in the heart of the fire. There are some sequences where we can see that the time is 11:30 in the morning, but it's as dark as night. And we don't know, we're kind of guessing these people are going to be able to escape because we're seeing their footage. But as we watch them escape, and then when they see the blue sky and the thrill of the fact that they've got through the worst, that's like an entire movie in 10 minutes you've done.
Well, everything is full of surprises, because when they see the blue sky and so forth, the kids who've been trying to be brave, who we don't even see because it's all their point of view, we've just been hearing them and hear their panicked voices, and they're trying to hang on, and their dad is being calm, and then suddenly they recognize they're on their way out, and what do? They just burst into tears. You can barely hear them, understand what they're saying, and there's so much of that immediacy and utter humanity expressed through that footage. And at first I thought, well, we'd use it sporadically just to kind of remind audiences what they'd been through. And we did do some of that later in the film. But as our editorial team started putting it together, we recognized this is a way to tell the story. And look, I'm still green in this documentary world. I come from the scripted world. And so with all of my films, I wind up making references to, to scripted movies. But I began to think of that opening that Steven Spielberg staged, Saving Private Ryan, of D-Day, and how much that meant to sort of creating an empathy and an understanding and a connection of both the horror and also the strength of those characters. And I felt perhaps that footage could offer audiences that same kind of bridge to our characters, who are real people living through the real drama. And again, this film, it only asks questions. It just observes. What does it mean to survive and cope and navigate the aftermath of one of these kinds of disasters? And of course, we focus on fire because that's what Paradise endured. But we also make the point that people are sort of thrown into a refugee mindset and an absolute abject survival mode all around the world all the time for a wide array of reasons. And so, I really hope it just creates that link, that bridge, the empathy for, what it means to endure something like that.
Speaking of the questions that your film throws at us, Ron, we hear one of the residents of Paradise saying, "I'm done with California." We also hear another one saying, "I just want to go back." Many of the people viewing your film, particularly those a long way from Paradise, might be saying, isn't it time that they stopped rebuilding here? You know, is there a point where you just have to stop and move?
Yeah, well, and that point is raised. It's raised within the context of the film by a sort of a city planner or a state planner, and the answer is, well, where do you draw that line? Where are those restrictions? Where do they exist? How about coastal communities? How about earthquake fault lines? You know, again, we don't answer it, but I think it's people, you know, want to live where they want to live. I think that there are a couple of points that I think we observed, and I hope audiences do when they see the film. One is that we raise a lot of points. You know, the electrical company PG&E, they're found at fault because their faulty equipment, you know, ignited the fire. These recent fires in California were ignited by, you know, maybe people firing fireworks or lightning strikes or who knows what. The reality is climate change is certainly a factor, but it's not the only factor. And there are a lot of ways to sort of, you know, to defend against these things. If you shift from a totally reactive sort of state of mind and level of preparedness into something that tries to anticipate these things. So I think it suggests that while the people in Paradise had done some planning, there was also a kind of a stubborn streak. Don't tell me how to protect my home. And so there's kind of a middle ground there, which is, okay, you want to live here, but here are the safety guidelines. Sure. And so, you know, there's that. Part two is, I was very interested in what we were just observing, which was the people who sort of had the emotional endurance and the will to carry on with their lives, whether it's in Paradise or elsewhere, were those people who immediately did turn to community and participated. They showed up, you know, whether it was the memorial service or town council meeting or a school board meeting, the Gold Nugget Days, which is the parade that they always do, celebrating that town's particular heritage in California, Christmas tree lighting, etc. And there is something very healing in that, and it led to problem solving. You know, that's not a community where everybody's like-minded and agrees on things 100%, but what they gave us was a real example of if you sort of put politics and differences aside and just say, hey, we've got a problem here, or a series of problems, let's address them. Let's agree that we want to solve them. And they really did move the needle. They kind of beat City Hall in a lot of ways that meant a lot to their community and to their healing.
Ron, we have all misspoken in the past and we all get our words wrong, but I wondered what your reaction was as you watched President Trump do the press conference afterwards. And, you know, Paradise is a pretty memorable name. We remembered it over here, but he said, I've just returned from pleasure.
If anybody follows me on Twitter or anything knows I don't have a lot of respect for this particular president, and I didn't vote for him, and I'm not going to vote for him this time. But he's out there. Look, he's a promoter. He's playing the part, you know, that he's supposed to play, and he got that one wrong. So, you know, I don't think it's that he has utter disdain. By the way, he's clearly, California is not a state that's popular with him because he didn't carry that state, and he's made it very clear that he plays partisan politics, and he wants you to know that. He wants voters to be thinking about that, which makes a lot of sense in the business communities, and that's what he is. He's a kind of an impresario and an entrepreneur, and he plays that way. For me, that's not the brand of government and societal leadership that I covet from a leader.
Ron, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
A pleasure. Nice talking to you.